Hello and welcome to Ice Dice. My name's Evan and this is Mike.
Hello.
Today we have a review edition of Antike 2. Antike 2, this is a Rio Grande game by Mac Gertz. You know that I'm a big Mac Gertz fan.
And you know that I am a big Mac Gertz fan.
Yeah, two of my favorite games, Concordia and Imperial 2030. Those are two of my all-time favorite games. So this game plays 3 to 6, and it is roughly 90 minutes. It's ancient empires battling it out, and with some economic thing. There's war and research.
Are we trading cubes in the Mediterranean Ocean?
There are no cubes in this game. Had you ever played the original Antike?
I had. It was kind of the hotness for a little while, and then it kind of fell off, and then Imperial 2030 was the hotness, and then I never thought about Antike until... I didn't even know Antike 2 was a thing until you showed up with it.
Yeah, I had picked up Antike in a math trade or a Dutch auction or something like that, but I've never played my copy. But then I saw this was coming out, and I researched it, and some of the rules tweaks addressed some of my concerns I had about the original one, even though I hadn't played it, I'd read about them. So I ordered this as soon as it was released. $42 to $48 for this game, which is pretty reasonable for the kind of game you get. But why don't we, before we tell you what we think about this game, let's take a look at a rules overview. Okay, I'm going to give a rules overview of Antike 2. I'm not going to cover every rule, but you should have a rough idea of how the game plays by the time we're done. What we're looking at here is the board. The board has two sides. This is the Mediterranean side of the map, and if you flip it over, there's the Orient side of the map. It's just slightly configured slightly different, and there's a couple other little things, but you just have to choose which one you want to play with. If you look at the board, you can see that it's divided into territories. Some are land territories, some are sea territories, and some are both. These circles indicate what good is produced when you build a city there. In the lower left-hand side of the board, we have a tech chart, which we'll cover that later. In the upper part of the board is a score track. This game is not about conquering the world, but earning ancient personage cards. Every time you earn an ancient personage card, you move your marker up this track, and the first person to earn the number indicated for the number of players wins the game. In the upper right here is the rondel, and that's where you'll take your actions. We'll cover that a little bit later. To get started, you give each player all the pieces of their color. They get 12 legions, 13 galleys, and 21 city tiles. They'll also start with 3 of each good. 3 iron, 3 gold, and 3 marble. To determine the starting cities, you'll distribute these cards, and each player places a city down where the card indicates. The rondel determines what action you'll take during your turn. In the course of the game, you'll have a marker on one of these spaces on the rondel, and you can choose any of the next 3 action spaces for free, or you can spend resources to choose one beyond that. The rondel has 2 move spaces, which is where movement and combat take place, 3 production spaces, where you produce goods, and 3 build spaces, where you spend those goods to build things. So let's look at the production spaces. The way the production spaces work is the same for each one. When you choose that action, each of your cities of that type of good will produce 1 of that type of good. If you've built a temple in a city, it will produce 3 of that type of good instead of 1. Opposite of each production space is the build space where you'll spend that good to build something. Marble, you'll spend on building temples. It costs 5 marble for each temple you want to build. Temples do several things. Normally a city's defense is 1, but if you have a temple in there, its defense is 3. Normally they don't produce 1 good, but if you have a temple in there, they'll produce 3 goods. And normally you can only build 1 military unit per city per turn, but if you have a temple in a city, you can build 3 military units per turn. Iron is spent on building those military units. It costs 2 iron per military unit, and you have the choice of either legions, which are land units that cross red borders, or sea units, which are galleys and they cross sea border or blue borders. Gold is spent on techs. That's this chart we saw a little bit earlier. You'll notice at the top of each of these boxes are 2 numbers. The first number is what it costs the first player to research that tech, and the second number is what it costs every subsequent player. I'm not going to go over what each of these technologies are, but they're the basic kind of things you would expect. Increased production, increased movement, increased defense, that kind of thing. So the movement space. When you choose the movement action on the rondel, you can move each of your military units. Legions can cross one red border, and galleys can cross one blue border. If after your movement you're in a territory that has no city, you can build one. It's free, you just put one of your markers down there. If you end in a territory that has another player's units and city in it, combat takes place. It's completely luckless. For each land unit you have, you remove one of the defending land units, but you do also lose your attacking unit. Works the same with sea. Each galley will take out one defending galley. You both lose your pieces. If you eliminate every defending unit, that city becomes yours. You simply remove the city marker that's on there and replace it with one of your own. As I mentioned earlier, though, the name of the game is not taking over the world, it's earning ancient personage cards. There are 5 types of cards you can earn. The first is a general card. Every time you destroy a temple, either the neutral temples or one of another player, you earn a general card. You earn a king card for every 5 cities you have on the board. The way it works is that when you build your 5th city, you earn a king card. If you lose one of those cities, you don't lose the king card, but by the same token, when you get back up to 5, you don't get a second king card. To get a second king card, you have to get up to 10 cities. The citizen card works very similar, except it's for temples. For every 3 temples you have on the board, you earn a citizen card. Navigator cards you earn when you control 7 city spaces, and if you do manage to get up to 14, which I've never seen, you could get a second navigator card. The last one is these scholars, which if you're the first person to research a tech, you get a scholar. And that's the name of the game, earning these cards. Well, that's pretty much it. There's a few other rules I didn't cover, but you should have a fair idea of how the game is played.
Well, that should give you an idea of how Antike 2 is played. Why don't we first talk about the components? What do you think of this box cover art?
The box cover art is trying to get the intrigue of the gamer thinking, oh, a conflict game in Europe, hooray for me. I like that kind of genre. That's how the box art does for me.
Yeah, but do you like it or do you not like it? Or
it's all right.
You know, I actually think that's one of the things with Matt Gert's game is often I don't like the box art. I think Imperial 2030 looks kind of goofy, and Imperial, you know, I just not a big fan of whoever they're using for the artwork. But this one I actually think is pretty good.
I think Jennifer Lawrence, they have a Jennifer Lawrence lookalike on Concordia, but that's just me apparently.
Jennifer Lawrence. The one thing I'd say about this is it could make people think this is a war game, and there is conflict, but that's not the main part of the game. So the board, though, is, the rules first. Let's talk about the rules. I don't think you've read the rules, but these for all the games like Imperial 2030 and Concordia, they do a good job. One of the things they do is, as you can kind of see here, is they give specific examples right there, and this is a pretty straightforward game. So I think I just read the rules once, and then I taught it, and everything went good.
Well, caveat on that is we're both big fans of Matt Gert's games, so it's not hard for us to pick up his.
That's true. If you haven't played 2030, the rondel is the big thing, and you've kind so it is one of those that you kind of pick up on some of the things he does. But it is a pretty streamlined game. It's not particularly complicated. There is a bit going on, but
especially down there.
But yeah, the rules they did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
They do also come with a historical, tell you about the historical, but I never read those. This is the board, which the board is really nice. I mean, I think it looks good. Yeah. It's 2-sided. I don't have a picture of the other side, but the other side is, they call it the Orient, but I think it's more the Middle Eastern area. But the presentation, I mean, it looks nice and it's functional. I mean, the one thing that I have kind of run into is when you get your city tiles in here on some of these smaller ones, it can be a little bit on the ones that only have a little bit of sea to get your ships so that they stay in the right territory. But overall, I like this board. I think it's good. Mm-hmm. The pieces in this, it's mostly some wooden pieces. You get your little soldier meeples and your ships, a couple of cylinders. Those city tiles, these are the city tiles here. They're double-sided, so you generally can find them pretty quickly on which one you want. You just grab it up, and if it's not the one you want, you got a 50-50 chance of the other side being the one you actually do want. The money is good. I mean, it works pretty well. And well, actually, these are not money. Those, whoops, I just bumped the TV. Those are resources. That's the money. And there's only one denomination, and it's effectively a wild card resource. And nice, big, chunky temples.
Yep.
So I think it's good. I mean, the components are nice.
Yeah, it's Matt Gertz, though. I mean, this is the same with the ones that are in Navigador and, those kind of games.
Yeah, and the cards are good. The artwork, I mean, it's nothing super fancy, but I mean, they fit the theme. They look kind of ancient. And one nice feature is these over here are setup cards. So what you do is, based on the number of players you have, you find the cards that for the number that contain the number of players, and then you can randomly distribute who starts in what country.
Yes.
The person just takes it, they look at it, and then they put out their stuff. It allows people to simultaneously set up. That's nice.
I applaud this recent development in the board game design with this help you. Cards that not only help you with the planning, but help you with the setup. It doesn't add much to. I mean, it doesn't cost too much to put those in there, and it helps everybody. Appreciates it.
That's the kind of thing back when I was doing board game files, player aids, I would put these together. I did it for Power Grid, where I separate them all, and then they came out with almost exactly what I did.
Exactly.
In the deluxe edition.
So
that's okay. I don't care. They did a better job than I did, so I'm okay with that. But overall, I think the components are good. The gameplay. This is a rondel game, which if you saw the rules overview, you saw how that works. Do you have any thoughts about the rondel in this game?
Yeah, I am a big fan of Matt Gertz, so therefore I'm a big fan of the rondel. And about 3 or 4 years ago, we actually took time out of a game that he and I were playing to actually look up the actual verbiage of the pronunciation of the actual word. And it both ways. It works both ways.
Yeah, you can either say rondel or rondel.
I thought I was going to win, but So, but yeah, the rondel is because it helps you plan. That's the first and foremost. And you can go up to 3 spaces for free, and you think about what you're trying to do and your economic engine going, and it basically keeps you anticipatory for your turn. So the downside of the game is minimal because you're thinking, oh, okay, and I need to do this, and I need to do that. So it's a good thing to focus on.
Yeah, the one thing I have noticed is that some new players, they forget which side is to collect the resources, which ones spend. But, I mean, you just have to, I just remind them, well, if you look on the board, your cities have circles on them, so the circles are the ones that produce. And the tube movement, yeah, it works. One thing I did notice, so at least in the last game I played on this, I went for a strategy where I was pretty close to having all the personages I needed, and I realized, oh, if I rush up and get the last technology that I don't have, I would get that card that you get if you get you're the first person to get all of them. And I think for my last 4 turns, I was either collect gold or then spend all my gold to go all the way around. I mean, I think I did twice. I went all the way around, and I've done it once or twice, but not in a row in other rondel games. But that's just part of the game. I mean, it's just you build up your resources and you can spin around that thing. I think a little bit easier in this game than other ones.
Yeah.
One thing about this game is that based on the box art and just hearing about the conflict, people might think it's a war game, but it really is all about the personages. You get personages, as explained in the rules overview, you get personages for building 3 temples, for being the first to discover a technology, for the number at certain thresholds, for the number of territories or seas. So yeah, it's that's what the game is. One thing I felt about this game, unlike other games that have a lot of direct conflict, is that I never felt like when someone was attacking me, like, oh, they're crippling me. I just never felt that way. So you have anything to say about that?
I had a rookie mistake. I turtled. Well, I got all my stuff on the board and I turtled off into a corner, and it was fine, but it wasn't getting any points. It was, it was like 2 turns away. I would have just wiped everybody off the board, but 2 turns away. So he obviously saw that I was turtling, and he just went and he maxed out everything else on the cards. So it was fine. I mean, but it does allow you to turtle. It doesn't reward you for turtling, but
unlike a lot of these conflict games, this is not a game where you build up a big army and march across the map. Because the losses are one for one. You build up a big army to take over a big city, well, now you got a small army. So that's really not what it's about. It's not about conflict. So turtling doesn't help you because it's all about expanding. You need to get more. That's it. You want to get more stuff, and you can't do that just sitting in a corner. I think you might even be able to win this game without ever fighting anybody. Maybe have them fight you, but maybe in a 4-player game. I don't think in a 5-player game.
Well, yeah, then the cover art is especially misleading if you can win the game without conflict. Literally, the guy in the cover art is brandishing a sword, screaming at underlings.
Well, he's not. He's pulling it out of his scabbard.
Scabbard!
The luck. There is no luck in this game.
No.
I mean, the only luck is who goes first. After that, there's no randomness at all. There's no card draws. There's no dice rolls. I like that about it.
Yeah.
Hey, I got 2 cities in one thing here.
You did that.
We'll put that one there. The player action is very direct in this game, but as I mentioned, I think that you could be non-aggressive and still do pretty well, and maybe even win. And like I said, to take that element is not really that bad. I never feel like someone that takes away a territory man. It's like, oh, I'm crippled. So, what do you think about the winning conditions?
See, I haven't played it often enough to realize it. It's Matt Gert's trademark, where you play Navigador for the first time, you play Imperial 2030 for the first time, you play Concordia for the first time. You understand that there's this. If you specialize in a couple of things, that's a winning. That's a winning, and then there's 5 or 6 ways to go about that, and the board clearly shows the means by which to do that. So with repeated play, it would become more obvious, and I think I'd do a much better job.
Yeah, I mean, what about replayability? You think this is a replayable game?
Yeah, it's a replayable game because for example, the first time I turtled and I did well up to a point, and if I would have broke out of my instead of turtling, saying, "Hey, do something else and go because you got all these armies out there and people are scared of you," that would have been great.
Well, it is something some people complain about. They don't, because you start always in the same spots. I mean, it varies depending on the number of players, but if you always played with 4 players, you'd always have the same starting spots. But there's so many directions you can go. Maybe it could get stale with people doing the same thing every time, but there's enough space in between people. I don't think that really is an issue. So overall, I rate this game. Love it. I love it. I mean, I really like it. I mean, it's not my number 1 Matt Kurtz game, but I do really like it. I think it's good. It plays well. It plays in like 90 minutes. It doesn't have a steep learning curve. It's got great components. It looks great on the table. So what do you think?
I like it. I like Concordia more, but with repeated play, I could learn to love.
Yeah, I think it could be. Okay, well, this was a review edition of Ice Dice and TK2. Thanks for joining us, and hope to see you again another time.
See you.